Hello everybody and welcome back to talk to all of you again today. And today I have a ship review for the premium tier 8 French battleship, the Champagne. And finally, we have a battleship that you can classify as the ideal battleship for the socially avoidant battleship player. Here is finally a battleship where you never have to get anywhere near any of your opponents. In fact, that is the ideal playstyle for this particular battleship. This is a battleship that never managed to fully graduate from the tier 7 battleships, where other tier 7 battleships, once they become tier 8 battleships, went ahead and got themselves all buffed up with 32mm bow plating and stern plating so they can start going out there and tanking battleship shells and fighting it out like men. Champagne did not do such a thing at all. In fact, she is still stuck with a very, very pitiful 25mm bow and a 25mm stern. Which, if you think about it carefully, means that she is vulnerable to 380mm battleship armor piercing. That basically means if you run into a Warspite, a Bayern, tier 6 battleships, they can punch you in the face when they overmatch those areas. Not only that, but while the tier 7 battleships ended up with 26mm bow and stern, giving them protection against the high explosive from tier 7 152mm armed cruisers, Champagne has 25mm, the old numbers. So it means that those cruisers can actually pen your bow and your stern with their high explosive. Now she does have a 32mm section in the middle, and if you want to deal, let's say, with some battleships in Desperation, you're really going to have to try to bait their shots off that center section. Of course, if you run into Yamato or Musashi or Shikishima, well, you better start praying. Not only that, but Champagne also has a tiny HP pool, only 52,600. Yep, you've basically got a tier 5 battleship's HP pool. Like I said, other battleships went and got themselves buffed up at tier 8 and your battleship is still living in a basement somewhere, trying to avoid all social contact. So of course, the Champagne has to, let's say, overcompensate for its inadequacies. It's really shoddy armor, it's pretty darn low HP pool. How does it compensate? Well, it went out and it got itself the best ballistic guns at tier 8 in the game. You essentially have 6 406mm guns, 2.0 Sigma, that have pretty darn great ballistics. I mean, you can hit stuff at like 20 kilometers without issues. In this day of social distancing, that is quite an appropriate weapon type and quite an appropriate playstyle. By the way, did I also mention that the ship really doesn't move much in the course of a game? In most cases, you start the game near your spawn and you can stay near your spawn for a long period of time, because as the two enemy flanks, let's say, develop, you can sit basically in the middle without moving much and shoot at stuff from a very long distance away. In fact, if you run into a situation where enemy battleships try to get close to you, the Champagne has a solution to get more socially distant there as well. She's actually got a speed boost. You can just hit the speed boost and run the heck away. See, that Nagato never knew what touched him. 23.6 kilometers away, and a Champagne has no problems at all. It is the perfect battleship for the players that do not want to have any type of social contact in their games ever. You sit in a crossfire position, and that is all you ever do. You sit there and you shoot, and you shoot, and you shoot. And the opponents, well, they'll know they're being hit, but they'll never know where they're getting hit from. Now, if you're a normal battleship player that likes to, get in there, do some tanking for your team, fight aggressively at times, do some brawling even, well, this is definitely not the ship for you. This battleship does not suit you at all. Why? Because if you play her, you will never want to get close to anything. Because if you do get close to anything, you will get smacked. And there's not a lot of times that you can absorb 10-15k salvos going through your stern and your bow. On top of that, the HE spam. You don't really have great armor in the middle either. Remember, only 32mm? Yeah. But see, this kind of situation, this is what Champagne is ideal for. In fact, the ship lives up perfectly to its name. You can entirely sip a little bit of champagne, have your hand on your mouse, and click. Perfect. Um, what else is there to say about the ship aside from that? Not much. That is basically her playstyle, down to essentially the letter T. She never really moves too much. Sits in, whatever you think is the best crossfire position, and you just shoot and hope that A, RNG doesn't screw you, and also B, that your aim is actually quite good, as in you can actually hit stuff from this kind of distance. As you can tell, by pretty much going to max range, shelf flight time is about 13 seconds. Interestingly enough, I'm actually thinking that a ship like this now appearing at Tier 8, I'm also going to assume that somewhere within the next little while, possibly, we're going to see a new version of Euro's, whatchamacallit, that CV sniping thing that he was doing, the original one with the 2 Musashis and the Graph. I'm actually starting to think that maybe in the future we'll see like 2 Champagnes and a Graph or something, because the ability to hit stuff at distance is actually not bad. With a scout plane up, you can go all the way out to about 30-kilometer range, which basically covers the majority of the maps that you're on, and you can do that literally from like where you spawn. Yeah, and with the ballistics, the shells get down there in a real hurry. And yeah, that's the Champagne in a nutshell. And you'll see, I'll never really try to get close to anything. Like, I'm just going to spend the entirety of my games at a distance. Trying to get shots in on unsuspecting targets. And basically scaring them if I do hit them. Like that Nagato, for example. That Nagato was trying to replicate what I was doing. Of course, not very successfully, because I'm a superior battleship for this kind of purpose. And that's it. In terms of the gameplay concept of the ship and the overall opinions about what the ship can and cannot do, that's about it. Now let's talk a little bit about strategy. What are you trying to do with the ship while you're in game? Well, it's simple. You're constantly trying to put yourself into crossfire type positions. So typically at the start of the game, your ideal position really is sort of in the middle. And you basically will stay there until you see the enemy team basically get into places where you can't really shoot them effectively. Then you basically watch the movement of your team and you kind of follow up and then set up a new crossfire. That's it. In this kind of a situation, by the way, where a Bismarck was actually coming through here, and, I'm trying to get away from him. Because even a Bismarck can hurt you quite substantially. I had one game where I was playing the ship where I ran into a Bayern of all things, a Bayern, and you think that a Bayern generally is totally worthless against a Tier 8 battleship. Oh, no, not this Bayern. Knew how to shoot my bow or my stern. Bang! There's like, 10k damage, and I'm like, ow, that hurts. Quite a lot. But you can see this sitting here at this kind of distance where the Ganaizen now can't even retaliate. Perfect. Ideal playstyle. It's great for people who, I guess, enjoy this. Personally, I have real issues with the ship. It goes completely contrary to my instincts as a BB player. Sometimes I really desperately want to push up to help my team win a flank, and this ship is the complete opposite of that. You can't. Furthermore, the fact that your HP pool is so low, you can't really take much hits from anything. You can't really take much hits from HE. You can't take too many hits from other battleships. God save you if torpedoes hit you. Like, I think you can eat like maybe 2 Japanese torpedoes and then your ship is basically finished. I mean, with this battleship, you're basically going to be that one guy that sits at the back of the map in their battleship normally and goes, well, I have the range, why don't I use it? Yeah, the Champagne basically promotes that type of playstyle, which, I'll be blunt, I don't think that's really all that positive in the community as a whole. Now, of course, I know people are just going to straight up buy the ship because, they want to do this. They want to sit at the very far edge of the map and shoot at stuff. But yeah, I don't really find this to be a very positive contribution to the game. You're always going to have random players who are in these ships who are just never going to get close to anything, and they're going to justify by the fact that that's what their ship is designed to. And it is true that that is what the ship is designed for. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, what else is there to say about the Champagne? She's got decent secondary range, but like you're never gonna use secondaries. I mean, I guess you could build it for secondaries, technically speaking, because you don't really need any other skills because you never get into those kinds of situations. um, you just never have to get into that. I mean, I think I'll spend the majority of this game. In fact, I might even spend all of this game basically not being shot at by anybody. And that's all I do. And you'll notice that I don't really contribute anything per se, other than the occasional hit here, occasional hit there, and just simply reminding people that I'm here. And that's really it. The fact that she's also only got 6 guns is not particularly awesome. At long distance, her guns are sometimes consistent and sometimes not. Slava, for example, the original version of Slava, since I can't talk about the current version of Slava, the original Slava a long time ago was really, really strong because she had a lot more guns. 6, it's like not that great, but hey, occasionally her shells do kind of group up nicely, and occasionally you can hit stuff really, really hard because you'll get multiple citadels because all the shells will go exactly in the same place. But then sometimes they just kind of go a little wild. She also does seem to have the occasional problem where like her rear turret fires and her forward turret fires, and you kind of see that the shells kind of land a little weird. They seem to be spaced out quite wide. It's a little weird. It's hard to describe how the Champagne is at times. Her dispersion, yeah, it's not super, super reliable. But still, you know, hey, this is the playstyle. In fact, you don't even really speed up except to run away from people. You know, that's the only real time you speed up. All the other times you can just go very, very slowly, a little bit forward, a little bit back, a little bit forward, a little bit back. Setting your positions, find the perfect little cross-map shots, take them. Surprise people, that is a surprise factor for sure. If you're someone who's not expecting to get shot from a Champagne, because, you know, Champagne's sitting at like 25 kilometers away, it's usually sort of out of sight, out of mind kind of problem for a lot of BBs. Or even cruisers, you know, they might be sitting behind a rock. Well, Champagne, you find that cross shot and you take it. And if 25 kilometers is not enough, well, you pop up a scout plane, you got 30. You can shoot someone from the other side of the map if you have to. And they're never going to be ready for that. Of course, her guns, because of these ballistics, you know, she also does have quite amazing penetration capabilities. You know, you can hit stuff from quite a distance away and get those citadel hits. Of course, as you've noticed now, I've made it all the way to the edge of the map. You know, so you start off in the middle, then you pick one of the edges of the map, and you kind of move there. And all the time your team is moving, you're hiding behind them. You know, your team, they are the ones who are meant to go in front of you. They're the buff ships, you know. Even the destroyers, they're way more buff than you are. You know, their job is to go out there and provide you with vision and tanking and everything else. Your job is not to do that. In fact, a tier 7 battleship probably could be doing that while you sit in the back and you sling shells. That is the way to go with Champagne. It is the pinnacle of battleship design for people who never want to engage with the other team directly. It's like ideally suited for that. So if this is your thing, if this is your kind of ship, they're coming out into the premium stores, I believe, like today, which is the 26th of June, you know, on the NA store. Maybe EU is going to get it a day later. Maybe they already got it a day earlier. I don't know. You know how Wargaming is with their times. Sometimes one store gets it earlier than everybody else, and then everybody else gets it later. I don't know. Go for it. But be warned, you know, she is fragile if you do get into a direct kind of confrontation. If other people really know how to shoot you because they know your weaknesses, watch out. That's going to hurt. But if you play her to her one strength, which is the ability to stay really far away and hit stuff, and your aim is good, you can make it work, you know. Positioning does have to be quite a thing, though, with the ship. You do have to consider that. Where do you want to position, and how you want to position. But once you've got that figured out, yeah, you're generally going to be okay. And this poor North Carolina. What a mistake to give me that little turn. What a mistake. You dead. Anyways, folks, that does it for my review of the Champagne. I mean, this is a very, very normal Champagne game, by the way. You do 100k damage, get a couple citadels, you can maybe kill a couple of ships. But your overall impact, not particularly super high. You know, I'm expecting middle, upper placement on a team, because that's really what you're going to be spending a lot of your time doing. yeah, I can see the majority of my damage was against stuff that didn't really ever shoot back. I didn't take any damage. See, perfect way to play the Champagne. Anyways, folks, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Aside from all that, take care, have a good one. I'll talk to all of you again next time.